Yes, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Variety Hour. And joining me in the studio today, two men who will be walking Meghan Markle down the aisle in just a few days, about to head on the plane. Danny McGinlay, the greatest AFL comedian that's ever lived.
Yeah, thank you. Very accurate. I'm looking forward to the royal wedding. James Hewitt is my date.
Oh, excellent. That's excellent. And staunch royalist and greatest Australian sports journalist this country's produced by a mile, Francis Leach. How are you, Francis? You excited?
Good to see you, Todd. It's good to see you, Danny. Glad you finally recognised my talents. And Danny and I are we're going to fight over the bouquet. I'm going to take
Right.
I'm going to take the bouquet 3 deep in the pack. Clean grab. It better be paid.
I'm just going to crumb. That's my hope that you spill it.
Front and centre. you and little George or whatever his name is, you just bowl the kids out.
Oh man, I will. Man, Prince George is going to get jumper punched by me.
There we go.
We start with
Didn't
child abuse.
expect that was necessarily going to be said on this show. We'd like to disassociate ourselves with those comments.
I'll back it up.
So the royal wedding's been a mess, but I tell you, it's almost felt like the AFL are involved in some way after how they're going at the moment. We've had a serious outbreak of umpire fondling.
It's not
Out
been
of
a problem
control.
for like 10 years, and now 3 show up at once. It's like the buses.
I got to say, none of them were, like, Hawkins' one was petty.
Yeah. And I
And-
believed it when he said I thought it was someone else, because Griffin was sort of about to push him.
Yeah.
And it was more just like an aggressive high five.
The Ed Kerno was closer to Hawkins, and the Charlie one was a bit...
Ed Kerno was pushing the umpire away, saying, yeah, I'm bored of hearing from you, Dad. Charlie Kerno looked like he was moving the umpire out of the way, saying, don't get hurt, mate, don't get hurt. But I'm very glad Stephen May got off, because he didn't touch the umpire. He was role-playing, so he was touching the umpire's character. The umpire was representing his opponent, and this is, I believe in
Oh, is
theatre.
that what he was doing, showing it?
Yeah. He was saying,
Right.
no, this is what I did to him.
Yeah, right.
And it's not like the umpire
So
was...
you think if it's in a dramatic
Yes.
reenactment,
Yep, that's totally
you can
fine.
do whatever you want?
I believed in that character. I believed in Stephen May's performance.
You were in the moment.
I was.
Well, we all know that the AFL doesn't like it when people mime on the field, as both Adam Goods found out and Sam Mitchell when he did the injection. Mime the injection.
Well,
So
my other
miming on
favourite,
the field-
Kevin Sheedy to Mitchell White with the Friday the 13th throat slit.
Yeah, that's
yes.
right.
That was a beauty.
You get in a bit of trouble. I do like how... So the weird thing here for me is not that everyone's focused on the fact Hawkins got done, but
Yeah.
Hawkins did plead guilty. So that's
Sucker.
That's one difference to the other three with May and the Kerno brothers. So that seems to be getting lost in some of the anger about it. Like, if Hawkins had a challenge, he could have got off. But once he said, I'll take the week, well, the tribunal can't turn around and go,
someone-
no, don't worry.
Did someone tell Patrick Dangerfield that? Because he was so incensed in the Melbourne media this week
This
in
is
relation
where I
to
find
this.
it interesting. Like, they're incensed, and I could see maybe they're incensed because they think that's unclear, and Hawkins thought he was going to get 2 weeks, and any touching of an umpire was. This is where I can understand Geelong's annoyance. Not one, he pleaded guilty, but they might say, well, I think what they're saying is we wouldn't have pleaded guilty if we thought there was a chance he could get off, but you guys have been like, you touch an umpire, you get 2 weeks, or one with a guilty plea, so we did the guilty plea. Then we have Stephen May get off the next week, and then we have the Kerno brothers get off, which are now been appealed. And so the weird one for,
I'm
the weird one for me
that.
is the May one, that the May one didn't get appealed.
Because they believe in the beauty of the theatre, like me.
No, because they want to send him to China as a bigger punishment.
When is that hearing in the Swiss Federal Court?
Yeah, that's right. So
No,
the
but hang
weird,
on, so the AFL are appealing the AFL tribunal.
yes, which they've done once. They did it last year, remember? So they've done it once
What was
before.
the case last year?
That was...
trying to remember now.
Oh, I was looking at it this morning.
This sounds a lot like
It's only been done once
Gollum in
before.
Lord of the Rings when he's arguing with himself. It's Norbert Louch.
That's actually the best description of how the match review panel and the AFL tribunal system work. So the whole thing to me about that's weird is this was a simple idea, which is sort of like you touch an umpire in a way that's not just, I guess, an accidental insignificant, but if with any intention,
Yeah.
it's not about how hard. It's just we're not even going to let that creep into the game slightly. You're gone, right?
Which is the way it should be.
Which is a very you might occasionally have someone who's a bit unlucky, but at the whole, it's a pretty simple way to
Like, is it fair
adjudicate.
during the three-peat days that Hawthorn constantly high-fived the umpires? Was that fair?
But that sort of invited them into the sing along after the game. That was always a bit weird.
We had to put the umpire in the middle and throw Powerade on him.
Didn't they have an umpires Clarko reunion this week? Didn't he go in there and they just sat around and watched the DVDs of the 3P? He was supposed to be talking about...
it's the 10-year anniversary of 08 where it started.
Yeah, so that's what... He just took the DVD and a bottle of champagne with the boys and girls. Have a look at this. This is the beautiful work that we did. Free kick Hawthorn. Hashtag.
So basically that means that we're just recording this in about an hour and a half. The tribunal will sit to talk about, look at the Curnow appeal and decide whether that's going to be overturned.
Who is on the appeals court? Is it like the High Court? Is there 7 justices who sit there in robes and wigs? Who would you like to be on the appeals court board?
Well, actually, when I was in No the other day and I was talking to Jonathan Brown about all these various incidents like the Natanui and the Parker and various things, like I want him to be on because talking to him, and I said this to him, no one would ever get a week off ever. He's always of the view, basically, when in my day we used to.
And Justice Greenlight said,
That's
in his deliberations, play on boys.
So if the AFL wins the appeal against the AFL tribunal, can the AFL tribunal then
reappear? No, I think this is the highest court in the land. This is it.
When does it end with Gillan McLaughlin and Michael Christian bare knuckle boxing?
I tell you, it ends in a Ouija board trying to contact the ghost of Norm Smith to get the final adjudication on this.
The big secret of the AFL, though, is the tribunal system is in place because the clubs all agree to be part of it, right? But it can always be and has occasionally spilled out to be challenged in the court of law. Right. And the AFL doesn't like that because they lose control of it. And the clubs don't like... Yeah, and the AFL doesn't like... And the clubs don't like to do it because it's really challenging the AFL. So it has to be something pretty important.
Challenges the AFL omerta.
Yes.
Stays inside the family. What happens in the family stays in the family. You don't want to know what your punishment
might be in another area, but suddenly when you need money from the AFL or something, it might not be so forthcoming because you wasted a bunch of time on it. So that's why they normally don't go outside. The big exceptions are if it's a grand final potentially, or the Essendon saga is a good example of where that went out. But that was partly also because Asada appealed it to WADA and did all that sort of stuff. So that's sort of the one. So it'll be interesting to see whether they, if they miss out as a Melbourne supporter, I think they definitely should get a week out. So,
love how it was a fraternal compact as well. The
Blues Brothers, the headline's gone around. Why is that not taken off before this? I mean, they're an exciting couple of players. When's Brendan Bolton going to be referred to as the Penguin? I mean, when they lose, Carlton should just play Stand By Your Man so everyone can throw bottles at them. And then
shake your tail feather.
Shake your tail feather when they win. I mean, I'm sure they'll play it once. And then 4 fried chickens and a Coke at halftime. Brilliant.
We should just mention, we didn't put this on the agenda, but just it was a big story. Alistair, just about, basically how they umpire and officiate the game, which is Alistair Clarkson was a bit annoyed after Sydney last week saying, they block our forwards in all sorts of, and our defenders, in all sorts of ways, and don't let them, stop them from following the lead and things like that. He then apparently had breakfast with Gillan McLaughlin at 7 a.m. at a cafe in Paran. I can only assume they were both coming home from something. So and then a memo came out that day saying we don't want to see this sort of blocking and all this, which comes a week after they said they're not going to make any rules on the run.
Does Gil McLaughlin take that meeting with every AFL coach? Or is there a hierarchy within AFL coaching circles because Clarkson's record would dictate that he's the most senior and most successful coach? He gets that meeting, can have that conversation and set the terms. It's an extraordinary thing to go beyond the normal protocol and process of how these things are determined for the chief executive of the AFL to take that meeting and then that same day there to be some dictate put out to the other clubs saying, well, this is how it's going to be from now on.
Yeah, it hasn't been well received by a few of the other clubs I know. And the thing is, let's just say Clarkson sort of said, and there was a suggestion that they were meeting sort of about other things, to do with just the game generally. So this wasn't the purpose of the meeting. And even if you believe, I think Clarkson apparently does have a lot of access to the AFL, like because of of who he is. But when you look at it, you kind of go, well, even if that's all true, then why send the memo out that day because it looks it looks so obviously
That
just
Alistair's pulling the strings.
that he's gone in and said, "We're sick of this."
No, I know what it was, boys. It was Clarko actually saying, "Can you stop? Look, it's not so bad that you touch my guys." By that I mean the umpires. He was saying, "All right, no, Stephen May's okay," but it was a crisis meeting for the umps.
Yeah, that's right. You got to appeal.
Yeah.
But so anyway, that's kind of been interesting because Jordan Lewis came out and said he found it pretty funny because Clarkson used to teach them that when they were at Hawthorn. And
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
So somebody's actually doing it better than his team, and therefore
I think
there's a
that's
meeting.
what's hilarious. Well, Longmire was furious and basically said, "Come on, everyone
blockers.
does this.
Yeah.
This is kind of."
And
I mean,
on the couch, they showed footage of Hawks players doing it in the same match.
Well, Hawks players invented the blocking off the mark. Remember another player would stand near the guy who was on the mark and then they would try and block them so that they couldn't join into the play. That was
yeah.
and that was why they started to enforce
protected
the area
zone.
around the mark more. It was because of Hawthorn. So, look, they're all going to try this, but it just looks bad if it's one coach about his team. And why wasn't he instead meeting with Hocking? You don't go straight to Gillen.
Because you can. It's an exercise of power and influence.
Yeah, and
Who would have thought that would happen in the AFL? But that's what it is.
who's meeting at 7 a.m? You know, too early.
Not everyone's keeping rock and roll comic hours.
Right, okay.
Some people actually
Yeah.
get up and work for a living.
My daughter's up at 5, so she'd take that meeting with Gil and Clarko.
She'd probably make about as much sense as well.
I guess getting up for children that early is the same as getting up for an AFL coach.
Yeah.
It's not that different.
Same tantrums.
Do you think Gillen does the same thing? I turn the monitor off. See
Yeah,
if
I
he'll go back
reckon,
to sleep.
I reckon it's just calming him down. Come on, Clarko, it's all right. I'll send out a memo.
We'll let you watch the Wiggles and then I'm going back to bed.
Exciting news with, I know both of you, this is your favourite game of the year. The China game is happening. Gold
Yes.
Coast and Port Adelaide heading over to Shanghai. There's arguments that this is going to be the most watched game, and I know Francis is going to get fired up about this. So, the most watched game in VFL/AFL history due to they've improved the broadcasting agreement of where it'll be shown in China, so it's going to go into a lot more homes than it did last year. So there's added a few sort of state channels have been added.
Yeah, one of them's called CCTV.
Yeah.
That is just
That's
I
the
know
national-
China's human rights surveillance monitors are pretty intense, but you have to watch this game.
Yeah, that's right. But they reckon it could be the reach is sort of in one of the articles I wrote up to sort of 10 million potential reach.
Whoop-de-doo. You know what? Billions of people watched the moon landing. Not everybody ran out and bought a spacesuit the next day. A lot of people are going to turn it on, have a look and go, what the hell is that, and turn it off. What do they
Hard
think?
to argue with that.
What do you think? Yeah, there might be lots of people who look at it and go, what the is that? And then get on with the rest of their lives. It proves nothing. It's a stupid vanity project, and we all know. I know the people from Port Adelaide think it's going to drive revenues, maybe to a certain extent.
Well, actually, the one thing I would say about this is for Port, the only people I think this makes real sense to is Port, because Port have signed quite a few $1 million sponsorships off the back of this whole deal. So for them, it's turned out to be quite lucrative just on the sponsorship, even if no one turns up and watches and no one ever gets into it in China, just companies happy to get involved in Australia through that way.
That's a win for Port
The problem is
Adelaide.
that Gold Coast are giving up a home game and are not seeing that return in sponsorship.
While the AFL's trying to establish football on the Gold Coast again.
Yeah, well, by never playing there, they haven't played there this year at all, because of the Com Games. I was saying earlier in the week, the Gold Coast Suns have played 2 weeks in Perth, where they had to stay in Perth for 2 weeks. One of them was a home game in Optus Stadium.
Mhm.
They then travelled and played they've then been on the road the whole
They've
time,
been
travelling other
Ballarat
places. They then go to Ballarat. Then they're back up to the
Weirdest-
Gabba in
weird-
front of 6,000 people last
Yeah.
week where they lose. And then they're now they're in China.
Weirdest tour T-shirt ever with the dates on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine that. Gabba, China,
They're the grey nomads
Ballarat.
of the AFL, but it's hard to win over somewhere where you never play there. Now I know that's partly because of the Com Games, but it's just showing you the ridiculousness of it, and that's why I think Port are going to have trouble, because who's going to go? It's making money for Port,
Yeah.
but who's going to really
Well,
want to go?
my
over
cynicism's
there?
not with Port Adelaide. If they're making $1 out of it, all well and good because revenue streams are tough. It's the AFL triumphalism going, oh, this is the most watched game of all time. Just spare me the nonsense and the vanity project. While football in Tasmania is dying on its knees, they're sprouting this line that more people are going to watch this game than ever before.
What
it
if we
means
set up
nothing.
a Tasmanian team in China? That might be the way to sneakily get a Tasmanian
Now,
team
Francis,
in
can
there.
you bring this back to the moon landing? Because that was my favourite.
Yeah, that's right. Hey,
Your argument was
this is where Danny starts to say it never happened.
billions of people watched the moon landing, but no one rushed out and bought a spacesuit the next day. Okay, spacesuits are a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment,
Yeah.
and I'm sure lots of kids drew pictures of astronauts and things.
They didn't buy a spacesuit. They're not going to go out and buy a football.
They might. Can we get the stats on that?
Let's get the stats on.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
sure Dave Stevenson of the AFL will tell you.
So, what is the highest rating AFL VFL game of all time at the moment? Does anyone know that? I don't. I was just hoping
No,
someone
I
else
think
had.
it's one of the more recent grand finals.
Sure.
but,
So
yeah.
what would that be? That'd be about 10 million, maybe?
No, I
around
think it's
the
more
world?
like 3.5 million.
3.5
Yeah,
million?
it's
But
not.
that's okay. You know,
That's a good man.
That's
Look,
not
they
bad.
probably can get this to be like. If it's shown on, what you don't know is that these channels that are being shown on, like it says the reach is 10
Yeah,
million.
it's 7
but
mate or channel
exactly,
31.
like, is anyone actually, what's it up against and what are they actually?
Yeah.
repeats of Seinfeld in
Chinese
Cantonese.
Seinfeld.
Chinese Seinfeld.
I know what I'm watching.
It's a very awkward episode with Donna Chang.
The AFL also say that they're pleased because last year the crowd they said was 30% were locals. I don't know, 30% of nothing. And they're saying this year, based on ticket sales, half the crowd are going to be local Chinese people, not. I guess it's expats and all the sponsors and fly-ins, the junket people that make up the crowd. Remember
And
last year?
political prisoners.
Yeah, it's punishment. Remember last year when they showed the stand and it was pretty much empty, and so
Yeah,
the
yeah.
AFL said, "Oh, they're all in the marquee drinking and eating."
There's a win.
So who knows?
They're all getting fitted for their spacesuits.
Space. Kids are really into it
China,
now.
the final frontier.
Now we all know that. I didn't actually know this whole story until. This is the wonderful thing about sledging, is you learn things.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is... when I first... All right, you tell the
No,
story.
you go, you
Oh,
go.
okay, so Essendon's Mark Bagley sledged Jed Lamb about his father,
Yeah.
despite being warned that the Carlton player's father had been murdered. Now, when I first heard he went him about his dad being murdered, I was like, that is good research by Bagley. Like that, anyone could just go out and say, you're shit, oh, look at you, you're fat, you're terrible. To have done research into
to go
the
into
death
someone's.
of a
Well, the
fam-
thing is Lamb's father was killed in an axe attack by a family friend when the player was 6, right? So,
Yeah.
and now Bagley I think he got a bit. It's one of these things where I think he got a bit unfairly tarnished in the media, where the media made it out like he knew
Yeah.
everything and still went ahead with it. Now, it seems that what Bagley has said, and no one seems to be disagreeing with this from Carlton, is he said a few comments bagging this guy's family and bagging Lamb's family, and Lamb was like, "Don't bring up my family, don't mention my family, mate." And a few other people said, "Don't bring up his family."
Right.
But you know what?
But no one, from what Bagley said, which is fair enough, no one said, "Don't bring up family," because I think we can all agree, you don't sledge someone whose dad's been killed in an axe attack, right? Like that we can all get around
That
that.
usually
But it's a
comes up.
pretty rare occurrence, right? Like it's not like you would like. The argument is, well, you should never slag anyone's family because
Well, but then
you don't
what
know
is
what's
sledging
going
gonna
on.
be?
Well, but this is the thing, like
Chewy on your boot.
so
back to the
No,
classics.
don't say that. My dad got some chewy on his boot, and his foot had to
Scarred
be
him.
amputated.
So I don't know what but it seemed it was portrayed a bit like Bagley was worse than he actually was.
Yeah, and
it's-
he apologised a couple of
Once he
times.
found out at 3/4 time, he went over and was mortified and apologised several times.
Did anyone ask Mark
when-
Bagley at the time when this article or this was first published?
It seemed like it all got ran out without any. Yes, it got ran out like he'd sort of not saying it, but intimate. It was suggesting that he knew and all was told what it was, and then kept
and
going.
Lamb was having a go at Bagley's physical appearance.
Lamb
wasn't
was as giving as good as it could get.
So there is
in
a
the
point
other
where
room.
that young man has to realise that if he's going to be personal in that nature, that he is setting the terms of an exchange.
Well, you
where,
can't be surprised when people come back at
exactly.
you.
So you can't be surprised when people come back at you, and you can't hand it a list of
Do's and don'ts.
items that are off the.
Yeah.
Titus, before I tell you you're an ugly bastard, here are my list of prohibited
Here are the
topics.
that I prefer.
Just have a
you
little
on.
card you pull out of your sock.
There you go.
Everything else is fair game, but go.
I think that's right.
Be sure to mention my legendary love of taffy. So yeah, like if I was on the field, I'd be like, guys, I am totally going with the fact I have a receding hairline, but my teeth are weird. I'm a bit sensitive about that. Don't do that.
Right, yeah. Don't bring up my jail sentence.
I mean, totally. I mean, just don't say anything about my mum. Go nuts on Dad.
Dad,
he's
that guy was an
look,
asshole.
here are his
Get him.
flaws.
I'll match you.
Yeah. By the way, my Aunt Bernadette has diabetes. Run with that. See what you got.
Yeah, there's some hilarious gear there. You'll love it. So anyway, it was an interesting one on how this all got really hyped up.
But it's a bit the same to, was it Sharman, the West Indian cricketer, and Glenn McGrath in that exchange where they were having a go at the West Indian batsman. He fired back about McGrath's wife, but the Australians had been the instigators of that exchange the whole way along.
Yeah.
And they gave the sledging bigger and harder than anyone, and then wanted to set the terms on which it could be returned.
Yeah.
I don't think you get to make those rules.
No, I mean, you just kind of got to decide, like, you're running a risk whenever like, on any topic that you could maybe set someone off. I mean, this is why
Yeah.
you don't, I used to sit at work and sledge people, and, that's why I was let go.
You could really.
That's why we're all here doing this.
You could go Bob Murphy. Just go. I think Radiohead are pretty overrated.
Johnny Cash is useless. Yeah. So anyway, that's. I thought it was interesting. There's a few things with the media this week that they sort of got very fired up about a few things, and I thought, is this really like they made out like Bagley was like the worst person in history? I more felt like he'd unknowingly walked a bit into something, and his reaction was actually he was mortified. He apologised at halftime. At three-quarter time, and then went up and apologised again at the end of the thing.
What's the guy supposed to do? I mean, he was actually the subject of the initial taunts. He responds in a way that he probably
look
realised he
a
walked in a
family
dangerous
joke
area.
or whatever it is. If you're at high school or something, that was all anyone ever said. You know, and you knew they weren't actually sledging. It's only if you assumed he knew that this had happened, which it's not completely unknown. So that's why I think they reacted the way they did. But
Well, it's just equal opportunity sledging. I mean, in the current climate, I think maybe we should just acknowledge it's not just I shagged your mum. He's going the dad as well.
You
This
think
is
that's the
equal
thing?
opportunity. Well, it's just something we should acknowledge.
Cameron Smith announced this week, Melbourne Storm captain, Australian captain, announced he's retiring from representative league.
How do you sledge Cameron Smith?
I know. So
Your shit. Oh, okay. No, you're not really. Club representative.
So this means he'll
Damn it.
stand down as captain of. He won't play this year or ever again in State of Origin for Queensland, and he won't play for the Kangaroos anymore. He played 56 games for the Kangaroos and was the captain since 2001. In terms of 2011, sorry.
Yeah.
In terms of that, he also Lockyer was just ahead of him with 59 appearances, so he was 3 off the most appearances for the Kangaroos in rugby league history. He also is seen as, I heard from a lot of rugby league people this week, the greatest Origin player of all time. He played 42 matches with the Maroons, and he was involved in 11 series wins in the past 12 years.
Unbelievable. And the fact that he's so hated in New South Wales tells you just how good he has been, because they do not like him.
Yes. Did you see there was a thing in the Daily Telly where they said, we made it? Like there was a headline like, we made it, like...
Oh, we made it through the rain.
Through the rain of... It's like, what, you didn't quit playing rugby league? Like, it was amazing. It was the weirdest article.
I think that's quite respectable.
It was kind of
nice.
funny, but it was like, that's how good he's just mentally... that
Surely
mental
they love him for
disintegration that Steve used to talk about.
They love him for the Kangaroos, surely. For representing the national
Yeah,
So
no,
it doesn't carry the same cash.
State of Origin is just in Melbourne. It's hard to. You've got to be in Queensland or New South Wales when State of Origin's on.
Particularly Queensland, you get a sense of
How full on it gets.
Because I remember asking people, sports fans up in league sports fans, saying, "Would you rather win Origin or your team win the grand final?" And it's tough for them. I just can't fathom that.
Yeah, it's not the same as like AFL kind of. We all remember. Like I remember when State of Origin was still being played a bit. Remember when there's the Teddy Whitten going around the oval, I was at that and all that. But even then, it was still a bit of an exhibition thing. It wasn't like that. The emotion of that day was Teddy Whitten, and then it was great to win. But it wasn't like we were like,
take that, South Australia.
It was a bit like
it sort of peaked, I reckon, in the early to the late 80s. When there were some incredible games at Football Park.
Yeah,
but particularly when a bit like the Queensland thing, the Victorian experience wasn't anywhere near as heartfelt as a South Australian or Western Australian Origin experience was. They were considered big days.
The thing about
games.
Origin, where it really became so intense, is for a long time it wasn't State of Origin; it was State of wherever you were playing.
Oh yeah.
So this was right up until about 1980, 81. It changed, and that meant that all the best players went...
State of residence.
And so all the best players from Queensland went and played in the New South Wales Rugby League because they had all the pokies money. And then they would play for New South Wales to beat Queensland because they could only play the players that weren't good enough to go to... And this drove the Queenslanders crazy like you couldn't believe for decades. Like they were just...
And they deserved it because they had Sir Joe in charge there as well.
Yeah, but the hatred that built up, and then finally it was dying, and so to reinvigorate it, they tried this. And for the Queenslanders, it's just, that's why the intensity is there, like, because they just felt like they were run over. AFL never had that as to the same extent.
No, not at all. I was trying to think of a soccer equivalent would be, like we've got the World Cup, obviously, where you play for your country, but I would be really interested to see the best 11 players from like the English Premier League play the best 11 players from the Spanish La Liga.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great game. It'd be a great exhibition.
It would, yeah. The problem is they move around so much, but...
Well, it would change every year if that was
like an all-star Premier game,
like
league
the
team
German
versus...
league against the Italian league. The Scottish league could play the A-League.
Fair money bet there.
So I think Smith goes down in terms of representative football. He's still maybe got a year or two left at the Storm, they think, as arguably the best rugby league player of all time by the time he finishes.
And certainly the best captain of any of the football codes of his generation, without a doubt.
He does enter into that realm of those players that cross their sport. Like people who have no interest in rugby league.
Can watch Cameron Smith run a game.
Yeah, and know who he is and have an idea of who he is. And how
one of the few Storm players who would be stopped on the street of Melbourne.
Yes, him and Billy Slater would basically be the two that people would actually know. And that's, so that's, to be recognised as a league player in Melbourne, that's when you know you've really
That's when you know you've made it. Yeah, that's your Michael Jordan.
Incredibly exciting news. I couldn't be more excited about this. David Warner is going to attempt to get his cricket career back on track. Now, he's banned from playing at a state level, so he's going to play for Randwick Petersham. Club president and ex-Test fast bowler Mike Whitney.
Oh, did he say, I'll give you $50 if you come up?
That's what I imagine.
Who dares bats?
He did Who Dares Wins, and he was also the ref on Gladiator, wasn't he?
With John Alexander. John Alexander
was for a bit, but what Whitney had something to do with... He was an ump in something, was it?
Gladiators,
yeah.
But so was John Alexander. I don't know if it... look, I'm not completely lost my Gladiator history.
As much as you should be.
The great Tony Shibeki was the voiceover guy.
There we go.
Really?
Yeah,
and they recorded it at Brisbane Powerhouse where the Bullets used to play. I know that because I was up in Brisbane, went and saw the Bullets play, and my cousin went, look up there, and there was all the Gladiator stuff hanging from the roof. That's where they stored it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is mid-90s. Yeah, right.
Glory days.
Gee, it's all been downhill since then.
The Gladiators? Yeah. It's a shame.
But look, David Warner, he's got to play cricket somewhere eventually.
Does he? That's the first bit we're going to disagree on.
Yeah.
But it is weird, like, I can easily see the case of Bancroft and Smith serving out their bans, which many people, I think, see as excessive, and making their way back into the Australian team, and if they score runs, be forgiven to a point. Especially Bancroft, because he's seen as the young junior...
The patsy
and the whole thing. I still can't get my head around Warner really making it back.
Look, I think he's entitled to return to the game
Why?
because he served a year out. I think, given in the great scheme of the penalties that were on offer to the ICC at the time was a couple of Test matches.
Yeah.
A year ban is a significant ban. I'm not.
But do you think the things around him in a cultural sense and those issues, the fact he didn't get along with a lot of players, he went against
I'm not saying
he undermined the captain, he set up Bancroft. Like, there's a lot of things he did that, and you kind of look at it from if this is meant to be a culture shift in Australian cricket, surely David Warner is almost ground zero from what they're trying to get away from.
Well, I'm not saying he's entitled to be selected for Australia straight away, but I think he's entitled to rejoin the cricket family and play. And if it's at club level, then, fair enough.
Well, he's allowed to play club level now, but it's more... Do you think he'll ever make it back to the Australian team? Because he's 31 as well.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's going to play cricket for Australia.
And he wasn't playing as well.
No, I think it's...
He'll
go offshore and make a lot of money being an IPL. Habbat will travel, Chris Gale style, and he'll retire. He'll have more money for OLED TVs than he'd ever dreamed of. But I don't think he's going to wear the baggy green again for the reasons you pointed out, Titus. But I do think that he's entitled to play again.
And I think that match, whoever Randwick Petersham play, there will be some top-notch sledging from Sydney grade cricketers.
People just down there with their Sanders in slips. The tradesmen will be out in the vans.
I'm expecting big things from New South Wales State League. Come on.
Now, we're rapidly approaching the World Cup.
Yeah. When do you go to Russia?
I'm there. Leave on the 8th of June.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's not far at all.
It's not far away, is it? So I better get organised.
So you're all lined up to go?
I'm going. I'm going to be there for the whole time.
And are you doing any work over there? Like, you're representing any media outlets?
I'm taking with the Green and Gold Army. We're taking about 500 people and doing some media stuff in and around it at the time. But it's going to be.
It looks like the security is going to be like
intense.
over in the top, isn't it? They were saying
it will be, and probably for the right reason. So. It's going to be an interesting trip.
Yeah.
But we've been to Brazil.
No, it's been great knowing you.
Yeah, indeed. Have to come to the Gulag and try to break me out. But in the lead up to all of these events, you always get it's going to be in the lead up to the Rio, the Brazil event, it was also, this is going to be the most dangerous World Cup ever. And of course a risk, but it never turns out.
There was a few robberies and the stuff. I was saying with what?
Yeah,
how
like
many,
the referees during the Socceroos Netherlands game. Robbery!
How many World Cups have you been to?
This will be my 4th.
So what ones?
Germany, South Africa, Brazil, now Russia.
What's the best one you've been
Germany
to?
by a mile.
Just in terms of it was organised and Australia,
beer and sausages were awesome.
What was the worst?
Well, there are different parts of it. They've all been great. I've had a great time at all of them. The most challenging was definitely the South African trip.
That was like the infrastructure wasn't as good, etc.
Yeah,
and the football was terrible.
Yes,
and what about
struggled.
what was it? The
Vuvuzelas.
You kind of got used to it in a way. Yeah, but
I'm still haunted.
Yeah.
No,
I know how to. I'll bring my Vuvuzela in next week and show you how to play it.
I remember like a week into the World Cup.
And on the Miles Davis of the Vuvuzela.
You know what? With those, it is the notes you don't play.
Exactly.
Because it was just white noise. I remember just a week into that World Cup, the people complaining about the Vuvuzelas got more annoying than the Vuvuzelas.
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't. Because it's one of those things where you don't realise it's annoying, and then if it suddenly stops, you go, oh, that's nice.
There was something about it, though, that didn't translate on the television because you got all the high frequencies. So it just sounded like an armada of mosquitoes coming
That's right. Yeah.
But I was at the opening game between South Africa and Mexico at Soccer City in Soweto the opening. And to hear 90,000 of those buggers going at one time, it felt like the walls were going to come down. It was an awe-inspiring experience. But yeah, after about 10 minutes, you're like, God, man, can we change key? Get a change in his take it up a note. Get Kenny G out there to play the Vuvuzela.
Now, there was a story in regard to the Russian World Cup where the Argentinian Football Federation put out a media guide, manual to the various people, and there was a page in there, it was all stuff like, it was given to journalists, players and coaches for a free course they were doing, and it talked about Russian language and culture, all those sort of things, which makes a lot of sense, you're about to go to a foreign country and want to know everything about it. But one page in it, one section has brought a little bit of embarrassment. Now, when I read this, the headline, I was like, this is really bad. But then when I actually read the advice, I was like, yeah. So they had a thing where they said a section which was how to seduce Russian women during the World Cup. Now, it was a headline that said, what to do when you have a chance with a Russian girl, right? So they've been attacked for this, but the advice they give is this: make sure you're clean, smell good, and dress well.
Danny has to remember that every time he leaves the house.
Danny,
Are you implying my wife is Russian? My wife is Ukrainian. Very different.
Oh, almost Russian then.
Yeah, give it a week.
Give
She'll
it
be
a week,
Russian.
yeah. Wait till after the World Cup.
Yeah.
But then the other advice it gives is, because Russian women are beautiful, many men only want to sleep with them. The advice is to treat the woman in front of you as if she was someone of value.
Jeez, they're weird, these Russians.
And I was reading it going, this is an inappropriate section to have in a media guide but it's not like the advice is horrendous advice.
Yeah,
to treat someone like they've got value.
But if you read it closely, it is because it says the advice is to treat the woman in front of you as if she is someone of value, not that she is someone of value, because she is someone of value.
So you reckon they're saying just pretend?
Yes,
right,
that's how I'm reading that.
See, I was thinking it was actually not to pretend, but if you just treat someone as they have value, you'll usually be better off than not.
Maybe they were reaching for that, but they fell a bit short.
It
reads like
these fools. Don't you know the best way to seduce an Eastern European woman is you come with a turnip, you rub it on her left knee, putty in your hands.
Oh, really?
Oh, man, it's an old trick.
The amount of emails I get from Russian women offering things. The best one I've ever seen on the internet is a woman, like a Russian bot, obviously, or sends this email saying, I'm Svetlana, would love to meet you. Mm-hmm. And the guy wrote back, and this has been screenshot, just send me the virus link. And the next one is just the link to the virus gets sent to him.
See, that is one of the best things about Eastern European women. They are direct. There's no messing around.
Well, the one thing about this Argentinian guide says that if you do sleep with a Russian woman and you don't have the right protection, you will end up with a virus.
Does it say that?
So the Argentinian Football Association said it was included the material as a mistake by the teacher, and it doesn't reflect the values of the federation.
Exactly. How do you get a Russian man? That's what I want to know.
That's right. Well, I think, and are they saying don't treat them as a person of value?
Yeah. Oh man, you got to rub the turnip on their right knee. It's very different.
Round 9 in the AFL rapidly approaching. Friday night, Adelaide are taking on Danny's team, Western Bulldogs.
Hey,
are we excited? We've won 3 in a row against amazing
yeah, who have we beaten? We beat Gold Coast, Brisbane, and I can't even remember who was that before. Carlton. So yeah, it's not. Look, a lot of people are tipping Adelaide. I will. Tex Walker and McGovern are both out, as well as Sloan.
Is Walker out again?
Yeah, according to my WhatsApp group. So Ricky never lies. So look, there's
massive chance for the Dogs.
Absolutely, yeah, and we're the best team in the league. Results pending. TBC. No, look, everyone's going to tip Adelaide. I always tip the Dogs. We have not done well at Adelaide Oval. I think we've only won once there, and that's when I was there. And I'm not going to this game. So look, let's just look at that simple thing. But of course, Dogs to win by 10 goals. Actually, I hope Adelaide, if you are listening, pretend it's a grand final and choke.
But I don't know. The Doggies are not. They haven't been impressive in their 3 wins.
No, but we are the average age of our side.
Brisbane.
Our average age of our side is 13. So we're just playing the kids. We're in a rebuild.
Now, of injuries is extraordinary.
Yeah, they've got more hamstrings injuries than you've ever seen before. It's unbelievable. Yeah, something's going on there.
But they're still managing to hang on a fourth on the ladder at the moment. So it suggests that they've got depth.
Yeah, no, but Adelaide have done very well with a lot of things going not their way. You think about all the players that have left and everything. Like, it's actually amazing what they've done over the last 3-4 years. North Melbourne are taking on Greater Western Sydney. This is down in Tasmania. North Melbourne, almost the biggest surprise of the year, just in that everyone thought they were complete rubbish. And we're going to be the worst team in the league.
Yeah, their season highlights DVD is going to be called, we're not that bad.
Yeah, that's right. So they've actually, they've done pretty well. A lot of people, they took Richmond right up to the line last week. They beat the Swans. I saw them in that Swan game.
Yeah, they've been competitive in virtually every fixture they've played this year.
The thing I like about them is they just, they've got Ben Brown up forward, so they've got good structure in some of the bits. But the thing really I like about them is they don't try and do anything too amazing. They're like, we won't beat ourselves. You will have to beat us. Like, you know what I mean? They do everything well, and then you
which is quite un-North-like.
Yeah, but it's also like there's a lot of these teams that try and almost do too much or play above their actual ability and be really flashy or stupid and chip it around a lot and stuff like that. North just do the real basic
and
bits
I heard Damien
really well.
Hardwick say that physically they're a really strong team. Like he said, they've got some big, strong midfielders who played a lot of games of footy. I know they've got a very young team, but they'll beat the Giants. The thing about the Giants is just how quickly they've headed south and how much a worry that is for their parent company at AFL HQ.
Well,
That their stocks are down so deeply.
their injuries, though, are off the charts.
I know, but
They're up there with Adelaide in terms of, they've got almost every... Yeah, they've got almost...
we know talent-wise they are the most stacked team of the competition, but every year that slips by without them being competitive is another opportunity lost for the AFL to have that moment in the West of Sydney that they set this team up for, and it gets harder and harder. Like it's got to be a worry.
I don't think the AFL are actually that worried about them not winning a premiership.
Really?
I spoke to their fan in Sydney. He's a bit worried. He's getting nervous.
Well, the AFL I know were when it looked like they were real right. When the year the Bulldogs won, and they were playing the Bulldogs in that prelim.
Hang on. Oh yes, the 2016 prelim final. Yes, let's talk about that.
The AFL knew like it would be a very bad look if a team who was on a bit of a tear at the time in the Bulldogs and hadn't won forever and had the most sort of broken supporters almost in the league.
Hang on, that's our territory. You back off.
We were
at the time,
we were top
at the
three
time.
broken. You guys were better.
They were a bit worried that suddenly, like, here their new flashy team beat them and knocked them out of a chance to play grand final was not going to look great, and so there was they were. And also just the amount of people who would show up or show an interest in the grand final if the Giants were in. So they
Giants v Swans.
Yeah, they weren't that upset that they want them to be competitive and good, but they're not like they have to win a premiership. But I think the problem is they're out of the 8 at the moment. They lose this, and suddenly you're going, well, when are they getting all these players? Like Scully's a fair bit away, and they've had Patton's been dropped. Like they got it's like 15 of their top 22 are injured.
Yeah, really interesting times for Leon Cameron, though, isn't it? The number of players that they've sort of farmed out to other clubs as a consequence of being laden down with so much talent. The theory was that they always had enough in reserve to be competitive, and they dropped off so alarmingly. They were uncompetitive for long streaks against the West Coast Eagles last time out. So it's going to be really interesting to watch.
But what club would? But no club can absorb that many injuries.
Adelaide is sitting in 4th.
Yeah, they're right. They're close, but I don't think that's. Yeah, they're the best, closest example to the GWS, and Collingwood too. Collingwood don't, but they don't have the talent really. Gold Coast, Port Adelaide over in China. I think Gold Coast are just. This is such a write-off for them.
So hard for them. The frequent fly miles alone. If they get full, they can cash those in. You can cash them in. Can you cash those in for premiership points?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Their end of season trip, we'll be able to go anywhere in the world.
They won't want to go anywhere.
They're like, can we just? They're going to have theirs on the Gold Coast just to see it.
They just want to hang around at Splish and Splash.
They do.
I reckon Port were great last week. Port really showed something last week.
Man. Best match of the year so far.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
What
Absolutely
about
terrific.
Stephen Motlop step inside, kick that goal?
So good.
That's what we go to the footy for.
Essendon and Geelong at the MCG. 4:35 tomorrow.
Well, Essendon have fixed everything up. They sacked Mark Neild.
You're a big fan of Mark Neild, Titus.
Oh well, Serge and I had a big rant about this on Tuesday, but yeah, I don't.
You're both demons.
I don't think like there was obviously a fair bit of problems with Neild, in that I think he basically fell out with most of the key people, which is why he had to go immediately. And you don't just because they could have just restructured him aside or into a slightly different role and then sacked him at the end of the year. But to actually do what they did sent a pretty strong message that they got real problems there. Bombers fans are just furious after last week, and you can't see them beating Geelong.
I'll put this to you. Bombers fans are the new Tigers fans. They are hilarious when they lose. There's no other team that I like. I remember back when, it wasn't social media, but I would go on the internet and go to the Punt Road End website just to see the rants being put up by angry Tigers fans. It was glorious. And now I go to the Essendon pages on Facebook because it's pure Schadenfreude.
So they're no chance of beating Geelong.
I mean, never say never, but yeah, Danaher's not playing. They look like they got no confidence. I think they have no idea what they're really doing at the moment. I mean, it's not like sacking Neil's going to fix all those problems they've got. So, and Geelong looked good last week. They look like they're got Ablett back. They look like they're getting their stuff together a little bit.
I think it'll be closer than everyone thinks, though. I don't think it'll be a blowout.
It's rarely ever as bad as you think. But.
It's a sort of win that could revitalise an otherwise moribund season, wouldn't it? But it's hard to see where it's going to come from. And you just wonder, with John Worsfold having signed for another 2 years, Essendon fans are just going to have to strap in for this because there's no way they're making a call on the coach.
Well, they've got no money, Essendon. Like they've had to be propped up through. I mean, they got some money, but they really got wiped out by the whole saga. So,
saga, did something happen?
Yeah, a lot of people forget about that. I did enjoy it all getting brought up again this week by Mike Fitzpatrick, who gave one of the weakest explanations of the whole thing. Even if you fully agree with his point, you were like, come on, Mike, make a slightly stronger argument.
Yeah, he just stuck the stick in the hornet's nest and gave it a good shake.
Oh, didn't he? It was absolutely amazing.
Because it's fun. It's like me putting on that fake name at Facebook and just saying, I think we should stand by Herd. Then I walk away from the explosion.
Well, I did laugh when it was all like, let's get Herd back this week, a bunch of people really? Saying, and I was just like, seriously. Sydney take on Freo at the SCG on Saturday night. So Freo going through a bit of fun with the Ross Lyon thing. I don't really feel that's kind of been sorted 100%.
No, they've got Nat Fyfe back in. I watched him closely last week as he just tore St Kilda apart. He is in Brownlow winning form again. He's a good player.
Yeah, it was St Kilda though.
Yeah, it was the Saints. They're not much good, but he's been like that the whole season through. He's
back to his normal. Yeah.
So you're saying Lyon hasn't fixed everything by getting the players to hand out flowers last week? Wasn't that just him apologising to everyone?
The press conference they gave was just one of the worst things I've ever seen, and yeah, it's interesting because it doesn't draw a line under it really. It sort of they didn't answer any questions, so we're still where we were really. So
they're just trying to batten down and push through, aren't they?
Yeah. And, I'm tipping Sydney in this. I think they don't have Buddy back though.
They've had a terrible run at the SCG, the Swans. They have not won there the last couple of times they've played there. So they've really struggled there. Strange. It used to be a fortress, but they've been beaten there. I think it's 3 times.
They should ask for the Gold Coast treatment. They should ask for the Comcast.
Put us on the road. St Kilda played Collingwood on Saturday night too at Etihad Stadium, which
you've got no choice but to watch because the Royal Wedding is on every other channel. Oh,
that's right.
So this is going to rate pretty well.
I'll be watching this, but I don't want to. They're both horrendous. So St Kilda, we always
they played Prince Harry at full forward. We might actually kick a few goals. He might be a better technique.
Well, Collingwood, at least they've got a lot of injuries. Is this St Kilda's best chance of picking up a win at Etihad?
Well, it is. It has to be because you mentioned those injuries are significant, and the Saints have their second half last week was a lot better. Their scoring power is just putrid, though. Tim Membry.
You can't kick.
He was unbelievably good in his first season in red, white and black and reasonable last year. But since then, midway through last year...
Has it all just got in their head, though? Like, why is that?
Definitely. That's got to be the reason. It's the only reason that it is, because their field kicking is reasonable. But, once again, only kicked the 8 goals last week, and it's been an average of 7 every week before that outside of the opening game of the season. It's just extraordinary how bad it is.
Sunday, Carlton v Melbourne at the MCG. Depends if we haven't heard yet. It hasn't started yet. It's an hour away till we hear whether Curnow. If both the Curnow brothers are out, or depend on one of them, who knows?
Stop pretending this will be a contest ever.
Well,
D's have got this.
I get more nervous as a Melbourne supporter.
Yeah, well, from the outside.
If the Curnow brothers are out, and then I go, well,
we're going to choke here.
Well, the minute Melbourne become favourites, they're instantly not favourites, is my view. That's how the universe works.
Well, this is where it needs to change for Melbourne, though, so they've got to keep winning these games. Well,
the one thing I will say about Melbourne is they had a couple of bad games early in the year, and then they've played 3 not very good sides. So, and they've won all of those. And so then you go, well, if they win this, that's 4 in a row against sides they should win against.
And that's a sign that things are changing.
Well, it's at least helpful. I mean, we got smashed by Hawthorn and, we had a few other. But if you kind of go, oh, if Melbourne actually can win games they're meant to win, that's, it would have been in the past, we'd have dropped like 2 of these or 3 or something. And
I do love them running around in their Alan Jarrett era.
Oh, yeah, no, I like that. Yeah.
I do.
I like it as well, yeah.
But
best the way
if Melbourne have to beat Carlton because, really.
It's Carlton.
Because it's Carlton. Brisbane take on Hawthorn.
Hey, bit of love for the Lions. They've been playing some good footy. They're playing at least as in contrast to the Saints, who is the only team St Kilda's beaten is Brisbane. But they've been playing high-scoring attacking footy. I mean, they've kicked 14 goals 2 weeks in a row or thereabouts.
Well, they haven't won a game.
No, but they're having a fair
I reckon they're
crack.
actually... I would prefer to be a Brisbane fan to being a Saints fan and a Suns fan. Because
Yeah, I
at
think
least
they're
with
showing
Brisbane, you
something.
go, well, they're all young and they've got a game plan and they seem to...
Coach has done a good job.
And they've been close.
Yeah, I watched them on Saturday live. They're an entertaining side to watch.
Yeah,
There's some
they're
good
very
stuff in
How
there.
nervous were you?
Not really. Mid-strengths had kicked in, so...
There's the words of a rock and roll rebel. The mid-strength beer kicked in.
Nothing like a bit of mid-strength.
I got a little bit nervous, but no, I still have absolute faith in the Dogs, so that we
You
go
got
up.
absolute faith in the Dogs.
Against Brisbane,
Against Brisbane, yeah.
So the Hawks will win this game, you'd imagine. But I reckon the thing for the Brisbane Lions will be, can they keep producing competitive performances, say 3-4 weeks in a row, given their young list? So this could be one of those games because they've been in the last couple of contests. Can they do it again?
And Luke Hodge versus his old side.
Absolutely.
there
He'll
you
know all
go.
the weak points. So
They were
could be
saying,
some good stuff.
there was an article today in the paper, will Hawthorn sledge Luke Hodge? And I thought, shouldn't the question be, how much will Luke Hodge sledge Hawthorn?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine them sledging him? It's sort of like, what's he going to just laugh? West Coast play Richmond.
What a game.
Now,
Yes.
how is it that the AFL, this is like where I just look at the scheduling, and look, they probably couldn't have known West Coast were going to be second on the ladder, but they bury some very good games in this little twilight zone that's not on on Sunday nights, which is just on pay TV. So most people won't be able to watch this. They did it with the Showdown on Saturday
Well, it's that
afternoon
lack
too.
of flexibility around the TV schedule that some other
But some
sports
of
have.
it, I agree with that. But some of it, you look at the start of the year, so it's not always hindsight, and you look back and go, well, I mean, the obvious one is why is Carlton on every Friday night? Like that never made
Are you
sense.
saying Adelaide v Bulldogs isn't worth the blockbuster status of Friday
Well,
night
no, that
footy?
makes more sense to me than a Carlton
It
game.
won't by quarter time.
But like,
When we're up by 20 goals, am I right,
the
Dogs
Bulldogs
fans?
at least won a premiership 2 years ago, right? Like,
Let's
and
talk about that.
have some stars. You look at Carlton and go, why would Carlton get put anywhere when Melbourne were horrendous? And I know it's because Carlton are seen as a big traditional Melbourne club, and so for ratings, I get the reasons they do it. But when Melbourne were horrendous, we were never let near a prime time slot, and you know what? Rightly so. We didn't deserve it.
So I thought you were going to say we weren't near a primary school.
Well,
Probably that as well.
Yeah, well, that's another story. That's a completely other story. But, that's where I look at this and go, well, it's such a, West Coast versus Richmond, this is going to be a great game. It's over there too.
Yeah.
So, it just annoys me. Like, things like the Showdown aren't nationally televised. A lot of people didn't get to watch that game. It's the best game of the season.
And this will be the same, you'd hope. It's going to be Richmond's biggest test of the year. The Tigers got taken to the wire last week. They've not been playing exciting football, but they're showing now that they're a team that knows how to win, even when they're not playing well, which is a sign of a very good team. So I think the Eagles can win.
Yeah, and this will be...
Jack Darling is having... we all thought that he had the potential to be a star and was never going to reach his potential. His season so far...
Oh, yeah,
his
true.
game last week against the Giants, I saw a lot of that. He owned that game. And it's the first time I've seen him actually own a game of football. He outshone Kennedy in a way as a sort of lead-up forward. So he's a genuine A-grader
The
now.
question this will answer, though, is the Eagles, when you look at it, they haven't beaten... The only scalp they've got of note was last week, which was a great win. But as we've said, the Giants had a lot out. Now, Eagles had a couple of their top players out as well, so I recognise it was a really good win. But they're not quite yet to this is going to be really interesting to see, are they pretenders
And
or
how
are they
much
the
of a
real
factor
deal?
is Optus Stadium? With this is its first test as a real cauldron.
Yeah, that's right. Because the thing about Richmond, even though when we were saying they haven't been amazing this year, on the G, they've been
I mean, they are
pretty impressive. They just squeeze you until you break.
super
So,
professional team.
do you know what? This is the thing people do now. Like, if your team doesn't smash someone by 40 points or it's all over by quarter time, everyone's like, oh, it wasn't very impressive. And you're like, some of those games where Richmond just squeezed and squeezed, put the pressure on a team until they did a Collingwood and until they just broke. And then they just ran over the top of them.
Yeah.
And people
wins
like
it?
that, like, oh, it wasn't a very good win. You're like, hang on. They just kept to their game plan and smashed them in the
Who wins
end.
on Sunday? Who wins?
I'm still inclined to think I'm back in Richmond for Sunday.
Oh, so I'm the deciding vote, am I, boys?
You are.
Well, I got accused by a Richmond supporting listener that I've got a bit of an anti-Richmond bias, so I'm tipping West Coast. Cop that, Dave.
Get on the punt road for them and literally.
Oh yes, and I will play. God, I hope they get smashed, and then I'll get on the old dial up and find the old punt road for them, see if there's anyone still talking on it.
Now, Danny, we should mention before we go, you just came back from Sydney.
Sydney Comedy Festival, and yes, big thanks to all the Variety Hour listeners who came up and said g'day after the show, and also bought tickets and watched the show. That was probably more important. But yeah, it was great to have you all
I'm
there.
here seeing something else. I just saw you in the lobby. And they went well, the shows?
Of course, yeah, I'm hilarious.
Of course.
This is what I do, boys.
Have you got anything else to plug?
Any
shows coming
got a sketch on Game Day next week that we're filming tomorrow.
Oh, excellent.
Nice.
It's just fun about very superstitious fans.
Right, there you go.
I've met the best one ever.
Really?
Well, I'm meeting him tomorrow. But yeah, it's epic. It's,
good.
it's unfathomable.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
A lot of insane
have you got
fandom.
anything to plug, Francis?
If anyone can teach me Russian in 3 weeks flat, that'd be good. Get in contact.
Oh, I can teach you how to act around Russian women.
I can teach you Ukrainian. It's just give
Very
it a week.
similar. I should add, I'm doing a show on the 6th of June at the Comics Lounge in Melbourne, so I'll put the ticket link in the show notes. And the 7th of June at the Arkabar in Adelaide, which will be good fun. So I was over in Adelaide for the showdown last week, so back again.
Was that awesome? Was that like
It's
that's
so
so on my
good.
bucket list, especially a
I
Port
was saying,
game.
yeah, I was saying earlier, like, that's the Adelaide Oval is the best oval in Australia.
At the moment, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like in terms of
They're rebuilding Whitten
the
Oval.
Perth one's great and very modern, and the MCG is great because it's like just a huge.
Have you been to
facade.
Optus Stadium?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So,
Obviously not been to Linen House Oval in Seaford. Seriously, come on.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but the Adelaide Oval is just it's actually just a beautiful. Like, it's the design of it,
Yeah, it's
every
brilliant.
part, the back, all around, like every facet of it is
Really, it should be getting a grand final. Like, I know.
I can
as
only assume the
as a
AFL don't
Victorian-
know it's there. Because it is, and so going there for a showdown is just, it's,
that's next
I
on
would
my bucket
highly
list.
recommend it to everyone because it's just,
And a Port one would be better just because the whole Never
you-
Tear Us Apart thing beforehand is like such a great opener to a game. It was Port's home game, wasn't it?
yeah, it was a Port's home
such a
game. Yeah.
brilliant way to start
The whole
match.
thing was amazing, but just how much they're all into it. And then I was saying earlier in the week to Serge, like when the crowd, because Adelaide Oval's right back onto Adelaide, the town now, you're not like miles away, everyone just wanders back in the city. So the city just goes off. Like it's
Yeah,
just
that'd be
party
awesome.
central. So it's just a really fun day.
I've
like
heard
the
that
whole
North
day.
Terrace, which is like the big street that backs onto Adelaide
Yeah.
Oval, they've got two menus. There's one for Crows home matches and one for Port home matches. And the Crows one is, a porterhouse steak for $28.
The Port one, they blend your food so they can suck it through a straw because you don't have any teeth.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Or
I'm
you-
only joking, Port fans.
It's just UDLs.
It's just UDLs and a chicken parma for $10.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, on that note, we'll be back next week.